Welcome everyone to the Dr. Abs Healthcast. I'm your host, Dr. Brian Abasolo, aka Dr. Abs. And on today's show, we have nanomaterial scientist Chris Burres. Now, Chris is a research engineer and scientist whose primary mission is to help people live longer, healthier, pain-free lives. Burris has a diverse background in the field of inventions and manufacturing. With a BS in mechanical engineering from University of Houston, Burris is a co-inventor of patents related to the use of explosives in downhole oil well drilling, a co-inventor of the most efficient fullerene manufacturing equipment in use since 1991, and co-owner of a company that manufactures a unique product containing a Nobel Prize-winning molecule that has been shown to extend the lifespan of test subjects by 90%. I can't wait to hear about this supplement, so let's go ahead and get started with the interview. Welcome to the Healthcast, Chris. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Brian. I'm so glad I'm here. I'm excited. I think you know nothing about what I'm going to talk about, which is really cool. So I'm ready to jump in.
I'm a sponge, man. I'm ready to hear what you got to say. Now, just to start off, just to let the audience know that you are a co-owner of a company that manufactures a unique product containing a Nobel Prize-winning molecule that has been shown to extend the lifespan of test subjects by, listen to this, everybody, 90%. So we definitely want to take a deep dive into that. But first off, I want to know, how did you become a nanomaterial scientist, and what is that?
Well, nanomaterial in 1985 at Rice University here in Houston, Texas, 3 scientists discovered the third form of carbon. So we're all familiar with diamond, we're familiar with graphite, and they discovered the third form, and it's really a gamut of molecules called fullerenes, and they're actually named after a guy named Buckminster Fuller. I'm actually holding up one right now. It's a model of one. For those who aren't watching, if you imagine a soccer ball, the line on the soccer ball represents the bonds between the carbon atoms. So you have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms. They discovered this, like I said, in 1985. By 1996, they won the Nobel Prize for the discovery. How did I get involved in this? I actually started the company, the first company, in 1991. We're the first company that still exists to deliver commercial quantities of carbon nanomaterials, these buckyballs. And the way that happened is really I was going to the University of Houston, met my now business partner in science class and actually physics class. And he was actually working for the Texas Centers of Superconductivity. So at the University of Houston campus, there's a facility called the Texas Center for Superconductivity. That was really created by a Dr. Paul Chu, really famous in superconductivity circles. My business partner, Robert, was working with Dr. Chu, and at the time, this material, again, this kind of soccer ball shaped material was selling, we'll have another like 90% extension in life is a really like amazing pause point. This stuff was selling for $6,000 a gram.
Wow. I mean, 90%, I could see why people would pay that. That's
Exactly,
so
right? And it's not that expensive now, so we'll talk about that. The prices come way down.
Yeah.
At the time, my business partner was actually separating this material for Dr. Paul Chu at the University of Houston campus. And one day, Paul Chu came in and said, "Hey, you guys are young kids. This is $6,000 a gram. Why don't you go start a company?" And my business partner comes from an entrepreneurial background, so he was like, boom, off and running. I was studying mechanical engineering at the time when we met in that physics class. He kind of recruited me because the process of manufacturing this, really, you take 2 graphite rods and you vaporize those graphite rods. Graphite is one of the hardest materials on the planet to vaporize. So you're actually dealing with local temperatures of the sun. So you can imagine there's a lot of heat that needs to be moved around in this reactor. So they brought me on to actually help design the equipment, help build the equipment. There was another business partner. He did other fun college stuff. Robert and I went and started the company. And like I said, that started in 1991. So that's kind of how I became a carbon nanomaterial scientist.
So you guys were serious. That third business partner, is he still around?
Oh, he's not in this business, and he
Okay.
is very successful, and he's a friend of ours.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a really good guy, and he's a
Gotcha.
programmer, and yeah, sharp cat. And he was at the time a really good guitar player, so was in bands and college. If you're in a band, I don't know if like
You get all the girls, man. I'm sure.
exactly.
Gotcha. This business opportunity sounded like it should have been on Shark Tank, but are there any interesting backstories related to this Nobel Prize discovery?
Well, there is one, and really there were three professors, Smalley, Kroto, and Curl, who actually ultimately won the Nobel Prize in '96. Kroto was actually out of the UK, came to visit Houston, actually came to visit Smalley and Curl at Rice University here in Houston. And he's an astrophysicist, was looking at spectra out in space and theorized that there was carbon in the spectra. Dr. Smalley had a piece of equipment, was pretty amazing piece of equipment. Kind of the short of it is basically it could shoot a laser at a material, vaporize that material, take a puff of gas, take that vapor into a mass spectrometer, and then do an analysis on the material to see what was happening. So Dr. Kroto came over and asked Dr. Smalley to put carbon in his machine, this fancy laser ablation machine. And Dr. Smalley, on 3 separate occasions, was like, I'm doing really sexy things like tungsten and other exotic metals. I'm not putting boring old carbon into my machine. On the third trip, actually, Dr. Smalley's grad student, one of his grad students says, hey, Dr. Kroto, I'm going to come in over the weekend. I'll throw some of this boring carbon in there and we'll see what happens. And he actually was able to notice some peaks at 60, representing the carbon 60. Actually also noticed a peak at 70, which is the next most abundant fullerene, and then was actually able to tweak the equipment to get a peak at 60 and 70. Some interesting things, IBM had the exact same data 1 year prior, and they wrote it off as an anomaly. And let me kind of explain why that's wrong. When you're looking at a peak at 60, what that mass spectrometer was really measuring is how many carbon atoms exist in that particular molecule. And the question is, if you're looking at flat planes of graphite, why would there be more 60 flat planes than 59 or 61? And there's no real reason. Like if you're just adding 1 to the exterior of a flat plane of graphite, it doesn't make sense that 60 would peak. And so that's when they're like, okay, 60 means something. That's when they like put all the models together and like, lo and behold, there's 60 intercies on a soccer ball, and that's the shape. And that's when they actually pretty rapidly published a paper in Nature magazine about that discovery. So if without that grad student, like this wouldn't have happened.
Okay, so basically all that happened. You have that Nobel Prize winning discovery in your supplement. Now, what impact have you seen from using your product?
Well, so it eventually ends up as a supplement. At the time, the reason they won the Nobel Prize is because this material, this soccer ball shaped molecule, is an amazing molecule. It's harder than a diamond to actually turn into a diamond. It's got 6-fold symmetry. So it's an incredibly resilient molecule. You can actually fire it at 15,000 miles an hour at a plate of steel. Most molecules will just shred apart. This one will just bounce back because of its resilience. That's why they won the Nobel Prize. In the early stages, they were like, this goes into ink and paint and battery cells and tires. And so that's why they won the Nobel Prize, because it performed really well in all of those applications. So what happened, and the way it ultimately has now become a supplement, is that in 2012, they did a toxicity study. For various reasons, they thought this particular molecule would be toxic, and they also thought we would be working with a lot of it because it had such amazing properties. So they did this toxicity study, and they published those results in 2012. In that study, they gave rats water, rats olive oil, and then rats olive oil. And we actually call this molecule ESS60, at least the one that's safer for human consumption. And they gave the last batch of rats olive oil with ESS60. And remember, it's supposed to be a toxicity study. And what happened instead of it being a toxicity study is those rats who really, they were given the MyVitalC formulation, lived 90% longer than the control group.
Wow.
Again, that's that pause. Like, that is the single longest longevity experiment on mammals, peer-reviewed, published research in history. In fact, the next well-researched way to live longer is calorie restriction. So you're a big health guy, like you've heard of calorie restriction. You're probably doing intermittent fasting these days, because even I am. If I'm doing it, then probably everyone is.
It helps, man. It works. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's great. And if you kind of read literature like David Sinclair's book, Lifespan, I don't know if you've read that one. I mean, there's really cool things happening in this longevity space. But the next best way and best researched way to live longer is actually full on calorie restriction. They're trying to make the jump from consistent, constant calorie restriction to intermittent fasting to say, hey, do these things really have the same impact? But calorie restriction, if you restrict your diet calorie consumption by 30%, and that's not 30% from the average, let's say, American diet, that's 30% from what your BMI index is saying you should be consuming, you'll, like, the data is very clear, you'll live 30% longer. Now, it may be a marketing thing, but I call it the starve yourself 1/3 to death diet, and nobody seems to be standing up for that.
Sounds a lot worse.
But
that's
again,
not gonna sell.
It's very well researched, but it's only a 30% extension of life. So those rats, given the MyVitalC formula, live 90% longer. And another amazing part of the study is they actually all died without tumors, right? So great, like everybody wants to die without tumors. In the case of these rats, they're called Wistar rats. They typically live 32 months, and that's how long the ones that were given water lived. And they have a known amount of tumors that actually increases the longer they live. So even though the MyVitalC rats lived 90% longer, they died without tumors. And so that's, some people like launch right into like, oh, anti-cancer, like, hold on, like that's not what that's saying. There's a huge difference. And I think these things are very important to share. There's a huge difference between like a cancer that's metastasized and how you deal with that, and cancer preventative, right? We know that good exercise, eating properly, getting good sleep are cancer preventatives. And this particular study with regard to those tumors actually kind of suggests that it would make a good cancer preventative.
Absolutely. And you were saying that how long did this experiment go on for with the rats?
So that's a great question,
right? They live for 32 months, or like almost 4 years, basically.
Well, a typical rat is 32 months. And think about this. I always like to praise these researchers because they were doing a toxicity study. And the one thing that you can say about the toxicity of a substance is if all the rats, all the control rats are dead, your material is not toxic. You have 100% non-toxicity of a material. All the rats died by, on average, 32 months. And then they kept doing the animal husbandry to keep these rats alive for 62 months. In fact, there were 2 rats at that 62-month endpoint. Actually, it was longer than that. At the average of 62. There were 2 rats. When one of them died, we're like, look, we're 2.5 years past when we should have published our non-toxic data. They euthanized the last rat, did the autopsies on it, pulled the data out of it, and then finally published their paper.
Wow, that's insane. So let's talk about the product a little bit. So how much and how often do you actually use your product?
So again, the product is really olive oil with ESS60 dissolved in it. Not much ESS60 actually dissolves in olive oil. You get about 0.8 milligrams per milliliter. And it doesn't dissolve readily. So it's not like, hey, let me put a spoonful of sugar in a glass of water and you stir it a couple times and now that sugar has dissolved. We actually have to mix it in oxygen-free, light-free tanks for 3 weeks in order just to get 0.8 milligrams per milliliter to dissolve.
Gotcha.
So it's not, it's not very soluble, and it doesn't dissolve very quickly. What our customers typically take is 5 mils, which is about a teaspoon. They take that in the morning. Some of our customers have said if they take it at night, it can keep them up. That's not true for me, but I don't think I'm a good test subject in this case, because I can have a cup of coffee and like go right to sleep. So I'm not
Oh,
like the person.
I'm the complete opposite, man. You're like my wife. She'll fall asleep watching a movie, coffee, 2 cups, and pass out.
A coffee
I'm like,
IV.
I'm wired. I'm wired for the next hour, couple hours. That's
So
insane. So wait, what's the difference between like, I mean, can I just obviously is it basically just the olive oil with this molecule? I mean, that makes all the difference.
it's that simple. And in fact, in that original study, again, remember they gave rats water, rats olive oil, and then rats olive oil with ESS 60. The rats that they gave olive oil also lived 30% longer, right? So
Okay.
whatever olive oil that you're consuming on a regular basis, you probably should consume more. I like what Dr. Gundry says. He's the author of he's a New York Times bestseller. Longevity Paradox is one of them, Plant Paradox. Pretty phenomenal books, if you ask me.
Yeah, he sells
And
his
he
own
says
olive oil, right? He sells
he
like his own.
has his own olive oil with a super high polyphenol content. I've actually I've been on his podcast and then went back out to LA at the beginning of this year, and we're going to work on some product development. The next phase of the product development was focus groups. And there's a thing out there that's stopping focus groups from occurring right now.
Yeah. Zoom focus groups, maybe.
Exactly. Well, and I'm about to start reaching out to them and say, hey, can we pick this back up? Because putting this high phenol count olive oil with our ESS 60 molecule really, really just makes sense. And what he says about olive oil, which I like, is the purpose of food is to get more olive oil into your mouth.
Yes.
So
yeah.
the rat study really fits. That Paris rat study really does fit that moniker because, again, those rats that were only given olive oil live 30% longer.
Got it. So as far as like the whole supplement industry, I mean, obviously you're coming into this industry, you're more of a scientist. How much did you know about the supplement industry coming in, and what has surprised you most about being in that industry?
So to answer the surprise part, I would say that what surprised me is that I wasn't surprised at all. And I'll talk about that here in a second. So my path to getting into the supplement industry, I think, is totally different than everyone else's path who's in the supplement industry. I think typically you get in the industry for one of two reasons. You wake up one day and you decide that you want to be wealthy, and you decide that you're going to do that with supplements. And I have no problem with people being wealthy. That's not how I ended up here. The other is people have kind of their own health conditions, maybe health conditions of a loved one. They do the research, they figure out the right supplementation regime, and now they're out to save the world. And hopefully it doesn't surprise you. I'm not against people saving the world. It's just not how I ended up in this particular situation. Yeah. I've been manufacturing this carbon nanomaterial since 1991. They do this crazy toxicity study in 2012. And then now, fast forward. In fact, in reality, mid 2013, we started getting phone calls of people going, hey, how much in a dose? And I'm a carbon nanomaterial scientist. So I've got this hat on that says, wait a minute, what do you mean dose? Like, you put it in ink and paint and tires and batteries and solar cells, not in the human body, right? We actually added not for human consumption to our labeling mid 2013.
Oh, wow.
It's just because we're conservative scientists. The reality is the research was very clear. It wasn't just that one study. There's lots of other research that really shows that carbon 60, right? That's what they discovered in 1985, that carbon 60 is for industrial applications. And there's peer-reviewed published research that shows when improperly processed, it's harmful. ESS 60 is carbon 60 that's been processed for safer human consumption. And even back in 2013, when we added that to our labeling, that was clear, right? Like, the properly processed carbon 60 is safe. But, scientists are often slow, like methodical, and a little resistant to change. And I certainly, me and my business partner certainly fit that mold. Added not for human consumption in 2013. And then fast forward to 2017, we were still selling the oil with the ESS 60 molecule in it. If maybe you've got a rat at home and you want to see if it extends your rat's life.
Do our own experiment.
Or do your own experiment. Yeah, that seemed to happen because we would get testimonials and we would be like, well, you're not supposed to be taking it, but I'm really excited that this is working for you.
Yeah.
In 2017, a guy with a big YouTube following started talking about all the benefits he was getting from taking it on a daily basis. And really, we went from like one phone call a week to like 10 phone calls a day. So we woke up in 2018. We're like, what are we going to do with this opportunity? We're scientists and entrepreneurs. And really, there were two questions, right? One of them is a moral question. Am I comfortable selling this to you? I take it, my wife takes it, everybody on my team takes it. So yeah, I'm comfortable selling it to you. And the next is the FDA and the FTC, and you've got to follow their guidelines, and that's very important, and I'm glad they're there, and we're on the right side of both of those organizations. So really, it was in 2018 that we kind of decided to launch into the brand MyVitalC. Oh, and to answer your question about like the supplement industry coming into it, I'm like, I'm not sure I want to be in that industry, because you can find, peer-reviewed published research that shows 50% of the supplements that are on the market don't have what they say they have in them, right?
A lot of fillers and whatnot, yeah.
Right, and some of them, and let's be fair, like some of them, I mean, that the criteria can easily be met if it, say I'm selling a pill and it has 1 gram of vitamin C, and I'm saying it has 1 gram. If it's got 0.95 grams, then I'm actually selling, right? So I think there's some rounding that they're maybe being a little strong, but that was my understanding of the supplement industry. And then we start seeing people, competitors in the C60 kind of more industrial space. It makes me a little nervous. But they don't even have in their products what they say they have in them. And in fact, I don't believe in negative marketing, right? I think if you go out and, as a chiropractor, right, if you start bad mouthing another chiropractor and he's bad mouthing you, like everybody just loses faith.
Yeah.
And so that's not a good strategy. I did do a video for one guy who claims he's selling C60, but when we tested it, it has none, like literally none. So I don't feel that's negative marketing. I feel like he's not in my industry.
It's like
he's
snake
in some
oil
other
he's selling.
Exactly. So that's the kind of part where I'm surprised. I was hoping to be surprised. I was hoping for, and I am pretty altruistic. So mostly what I believe is that these people just don't know what they're doing. I don't like to believe that they're doing anything malicious and intentional. I'm not convinced that that's true, but that's what I like to believe. So it's not a matter of people out there really trying to, stick it to the consumer. It's just that, like, we have HPLCs here at our office, from 1991 really until 2018. I only sold to research institutions around the world. If you're familiar with a research organization and they did research on fullerenes, we sold them the fullerenes. And what's unique about that situation is when we sell it to them, they give it to a grad student or a research associate, and they take it in the back and they put it in their HPLC machine, and they make sure that what we sold them was what we told them we were going to sell them, right? Like that's
it should be.
There ain't. But you get into the supplement industry, and you might actually have one, maybe not. Like, how many HPLCs do you and your friends have lying around? Zero, right? Like, so, and so those people who came into this industry just piggybacking off of this particular paper have only ever sold to a consumer who doesn't have the ability to actually understand his particular product as he's receiving it. It makes me wonder, like, you get on Amazon and you're looking at supplements and you're like, what does a 5-star review on Amazon about vitamin C actually mean? Right? Because what we do know is they didn't take it and inject it in HPLC and confirm that it was exactly 1 gram of vitamin C and nothing else.
Yeah.
It's just like it was 90 pills delivered on time. So I feel like Amazon, although we are on Amazon, and if you found our products on Amazon, they're only ours. We don't let anybody else sell on Amazon. But I feel like Amazon is this space that's a little nerve-wracking, right? Because if you've got a relationship, maybe like a relationship that you might have with our company and decide to buy it to take advantage of Amazon Prime or whatever, by the way, we ship in 2 days, so you don't have to do that. Then, okay, that makes sense as long as you've done the research on the company. But Amazon is a place that makes me really nervous about supplements.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. All right, Chris. So a lot of scientific talk being thrown around, but I kind of want to get my audience the gist of what the benefits of this supplement are. You know, short term, long term. Obviously, we already talked about the extended lifespan. You know, obviously that I'm sure that deals with how consistent you are with the product.
Yep.
But you know, what are some short term benefits? Like what? So people out there that may need this, they could figure it out that, hey, you know what? I need to buy this.
Yeah. Well, first, let's talk about the long term, right? Because that's a little bit of a challenge. Like, hey, I have conversations with people. I share them the results of this particular study and 90% extension of life. And you may or may not be surprised at how many people are like, I don't want to live longer. And for me, I've always wanted to live longer. But when I then pose the question this way and say, well, what if you have the same mental capacity and the same physical capacity that you do today, right? And that's what you do on a daily basis is keep people in that physical capacity.
Yes.
Would you then be interested in living longer? Now, there's still some people who say no. And I feel like maybe they need to reevaluate their life and
Life is
make
hard.
some changes. But that changes the story, because as a society, and again, David Sinclair's book, Lifespan, talks about like shifting the mindset as it relates to age. Dr. Gundry says, I want you to die young at a very old age, right? So feeling young and healthy and mentally having your mental acuity. So it's just interesting, like the paper that is the science behind the product is about something that most people, at least on the surface, are not that interested in. And people started taking it mid-2013, really all the way through to today, and giving us some pretty amazing testimonials. So I'll just give you mine, and then any other testimonials that I get and kind of pop in my mind. I only share testimonials where I've personally had conversations with the person, right?
Yeah.
And where I've got it documented that I can go back to them. I'm also going to talk about testimonials, so it's important to say that the FDA has not evaluated our product. It's not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease.
Like every supplement.
Like every supplement, yeah. And what we're describing might not happen for you, and it might be worth trying. The most consistent testimonial is people take it in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. And sleep is just so paramount. It's so important. And I think as a society, we kind of do a lot of hand waving around sleep. Like, we know sleep is good for our mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Like, we know that. And we need to get our sleep, you know, unless there's something else to do. Yeah. Right? Like, that's kind of the mindset. We're the only species on the planet that will forego sleep for a reason that doesn't help our health. Right? Yeah. Like, and I'm guilty and actually do like to go out dancing and have drinks and
we all are.
We're all guilty, but sleep is so very important. And the most of the testimonials that I can talk about, they could just be explained by better sleep, right? Because it does help your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Yeah. The other thing that I like to draw a contrast with when we talk about better sleep is there's a $2 billion sleep aid industry. And actually, this was kind of brought to my attention. There's a book by Matthew Walker called Why We Sleep. Absolutely phenomenal book on sleep. It's also the scariest book that you will ever read on sleep. It's like the Freddy Krueger of sleep. Because he talks about all the negative things that happen. And it's Puron Research. He
When
was
we don't sleep. When we don't sleep.
when you don't sleep. Yeah, like what happens? How limited is your mental acuity? So we recently went through the experience of daylight savings time. When we lose an hour of sleep, heart attacks go up.
Oh, wow.
And we gain that hour of sleep back, heart attacks go down. Back down. So sleep impacts our cardiovascular health. If you're I think one of the stats in there, if you're a surgeon and you've only gotten 6 hours of sleep, you're like 80% more likely to make a mistake. Again, mistake, like, I'm not saying like they didn't make it. I'm just saying like you're more likely to make some sort of procedural mistake.
If you're getting surgery, ask your surgeon how many hours of sleep you got the night before.
Yeah, don't rely on that commercial where they think like, I'm not a surgeon, but I got enough sleep.
Stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Exactly. Yeah, so sleep's really important. That's one of the most consistent ones. In that book, they talk about the $2 billion sleep aid industry. Now, this sleep aid industry, basically you take these things right before you go to sleep. They knock you out, so really like unconscious. And alcohol
like the
does
melatonin, the valerian root, the Ambien.
Yeah, valerian I think is phenomenal. Ambien is like the prescription, and what that does is, so there's a chemical in our bodies that actually related to the ATP processes. I'll get a little geeky here, in our mitochondria, right? That mitochondria is the part of the cells that power the cells. In that is an ATP process. Well, the A is adenosine. And so as that process is occurring, adenosine builds up in our system. Adenosine is a sign to our bodies that we need to get sleep. And when we sleep, adenosine is relaxed, released, right? Well, Ambien will knock you unconscious. It will release the adenosine, so you wake up feeling like you don't need sleep, which has to be pretty refreshing compared to the previous nights when you didn't get sleep at all.
Yeah.
But what it didn't do is allow you to get your REM and your NREM sleep, the really restorative healing that actually happens. So you got to be careful. I really wish I had gotten my dad off of those before he passed. I think that could have had a significant positive impact. Our product, again, people take it in the morning. There's really only two other things I'm aware of that you can do in the morning that will positively impact your sleep that night. One of them is exercise, and the other one is actually getting exposure to the sun as it's rising, to get your circadian rhythm in line with the rising and setting of the sun. So it's something very unique is happening with the product. And so sleep is one of them. In my case, I played soccer for 25 years. Nice. I had a left knee pain until really 2018 when I started taking MyVitalC on a regular basis. That knee pain stuck with me, and it's been gone ever since. I also used to get 4 or 5 migraines a year. I know it was 4 or 5 migraines a year because I'm a scientist. I have a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet.
You write everything down.
And 24. I was trying to figure out like what's causing these. Was like too much alcohol? Was it, staying up too late? Was it a fight with my wife, or then girlfriend? So in 2014, I was getting 4 or 5 migraines a year. By the way, I never figured out what was causing them. They just sucked, right?
Yeah.
4 or 5 a year. In 2018, I didn't get a single migraine.
Wow.
Now, 4 or 5, like migraines can be debilitating. In the case of my wife, she was actually getting 9+ migraines per month. She actually had a medication that they would only give her 9. So anything over 9, she just had to suffer through. When she started, it actually took me a while. So I started taking beginning of 2018. You may have this experience where it takes you a while to convince them, like, you should try this. Yeah. Finally, about halfway through 2018, she started taking it, and she's down to 1 a month, every other month, or 1 a month.
Amazing.
Which is pretty.
How much after you started did you start to see those effects? Like how consistent were you with the product before those effects?
That's a great question. I think in the beginning, right now, like if you believe that there's something that you need to do on a daily basis, you got to figure out how to put it into your daily routine, right? So now we actually have an MCT product. that's got ESS 60 in it, obviously, and then an olive oil product, and then an avocado product. So my current regimen is I'll put like a bulletproof coffee. I don't know if you've ever done it, right? So you put a little bit of ghee, you
I
put
love
a little bit
keto.
of keto, right?
Yeah.
Put a little MCT with the ESS 60 molecules. So that goes into the coffee. And then while that coffee's brewing, I'm actually taking a teaspoon and a half. I actually have easy access to it, so I take more of our olive oil product. And then I'll actually, if I have a salad, which is quite often for lunch, then I'll put some of our avocado on it. So that's my pattern now. Your question was like, in the beginning, I don't think I was as consistent. In fact, I know I wasn't as consistent because I will still say, if I'm in the middle of the day and I start yawning, which doesn't happen anymore because I take my product,
Yeah.
I would know that it was because I hadn't taken my product that morning, right? Like you can tell. So people ask like, how quick or am I going to see some benefits?
Facts, yeah.
I've got one video testimonial of a lady on the first day. So she took her first serving of MyVitalC, and in the video that she gave me that day, she only finished half her cup of coffee, right? So this only happens from people only point that out if they're like, I always finish my cup of coffee. I probably go have another one after it.
I need it, yeah.
And she noticed in the first day. My other kind of the other end, the opposite end of the spectrum, actually my largest distributor here in Houston, her name's Gwen. I did a video with her, so you go find that and hear this story. She originally purchased the product for her dog, right? She had heard some good things about it. She bought it for her dog, and she saw such a big improvement in her dog that she was like, okay, well, I'm going to start taking it. I always like to kind of segue there. What's important about the dog experiencing something is there's no room for placebo effect, right? The dog isn't like, oh, I'm taking this, supplement, so today I'm going to be more energetic and whatever. So her dog was doing really good, and she was taking the product on a daily basis. And she, in the video, tells the story that 3 months in, I would have told you that I haven't really noticed anything, but I kind of slowed down and really paid attention.
Yeah.
And I noticed that I was waking up earlier. I was going to sleep a little bit later. And I kind of argue this is the worst possible testimonial for a supplement. I cleaned my garage, right? So any of us has that kind of looming task that we're never getting to. Good sleep. I think that's also like everyone.
Yeah.
It's good rest, right? That's one of the things. And it's also maybe just a better mental balance and saying, you know what, I'm tired of that damn garage being messy, and so I'm gonna go clean it. And as it relates to sleep, I can kind of embarrassingly tell you, before I started the product again in 2018, I used to take 2 naps every Saturday and Sunday before noon. So I'd wake up, I've got twins, I'd go on the couch, we'd watch cartoons. Well, really, they would watch cartoons, I would sleep, I'd get up, I'd have some breakfast, and then I'd go back to sleep. I don't take naps anymore. I don't take naps anymore at all. And guess what? I'm getting more done around the house, which is not a great, supplement testimonial. Like, get more done around the house. Take MyVitalC. But I think it's pretty impressive nonetheless.
I'm sure your wife was happy. I'm sure my wife would be happy. And you also, so it's basically safe enough for dogs. And are you saying you could extend the life of our pets?
So if you look at the study, those rats live 90% longer. All right. And so now you've got these pets
See, my wife may not think about herself when it comes to this product, but if you could convince her about her pet and our dog Copper, oh man, you would have her sold.
Yeah. Well, and I'm happy to do this. I can send you guys some pet. I think you guys are kind of distance relationship right now, but I could send you or her some of the pet version. And then if you're interested in trying it, what I've done on some podcasts is, hey, let me get you some. And maybe we up to you, we schedule another podcast and we can talk good or bad or indifferent about your results.
Absolutely. I'm actually going to see her soon. So if I could get that beforehand, I'll definitely take it over to her.
Cool.
So just to wrap up, man, I want to get my audience all the information about your product and, how they could research more about you. So why don't you go ahead and drop, your website, your social media, and how could people find you online?
Cool. Before I do that, I do want to share one thing, and that's one kind of different thing from me as a supplement guy from most. I'm actually working on human trials. So I don't know if you're familiar with this. This is an Aura ring. It's one of the better sleep trackers on the market.
Oh, wow.
And I'm working with a professor out of the University of California, San Diego, who is a consultant for Aura ring. And we're working on a sleep study, collecting data on people, good in-depth sleep data on people 10 days prior to taking my product, 10 days on it, 10 days off it, 10 days on it again. The first guy who went through it, I think the great testimonial from him is, I'm just going to be a lifelong customer. I actually got a video the other day, I think it was about 2 weeks ago. The lady was a severe insomniac and cried twice in her testimonial video. Like, one of them was like, my spouse is getting to see the woman he fell in love with again. Like, wow, how lucky am I? And then she was just with tears in her eyes, was like, thank you to us as the company providing the product to her. She was an influencer that we had gotten some product to. The other thing that's really exciting is there's a thing called DNA age testing, right? So it's based on the methylation of your DNA. And I had a doctor call me. He's actually out of Tempe, Florida. And he called me, I think it was like 9 months ago or something. And then recently called me back and said, hey, I have 2 of my patients were on this particular protocol. And the results of the protocol, basically the way it worked is they took a DNA age test before they started the protocol. And then 5 months later, they took another DNA age test. And apparently, because I still don't know that much about DNA age tests, right? I've got to kind of educate myself.
Yeah.
But apparently a good result is that you only age 4 months in that 5-month period, right? So you're just slowing down the aging process.
Yeah.
In this case, those ladies actually reverted. One of them was like 1.5 years, and the other one was 2.8 years on the protocol. So we've already got like the expenses for the DNA age test and the product over to him. We're already running a 4-person trial. Then we're going to ramp that up to a 20-person trial. Like, this is pretty, this is not, in my opinion, not normal for a supplement company to actually go in and do this kind of research. To really, like, I'm a scientist, so like, we've got this great study. We're working actually on recreating that study, and we need to kind of provide more data that supports what we're seeing, what our customers are seeing.
Yeah, no, you got like the best of both worlds. You're actually working on your product and you're able to sell it and, be the business person as well.
Yeah.
That's amazing. A lot of supplements can't say the same. But yeah, man, let us know your online tags, your social media handles, your website. Where could people find MyVitalC?
So they can go to, and we've got a link directly for your audience, right? So they can go to myvitalc.com/Dr. Abs, of course. When you go to that page, we've kind of got all of our products there neatly arranged and some information. Click around our website. That's great. If you want to get the product, it's about $99, or you can get on subscription for $75. So this is like a 25% savings just to go on subscription. You can cancel that at any time. I just encourage people, take advantage of that. My staff is not trained to talk. Actually, we have like 4.9 star reviews on Google. My staff is not trained to talk you out of canceling it. It's not anything like that. Take advantage of that discount. They can also get another $15 off with a coupon for you. So if they use Dr. Abs, they'll get $15 off of their first purchase.
Very cool. And that's about a month's worth, right?
That's about a month. It's right. Okay. It's 120 mils. So it's really like 24 days if you're taking exactly 5 mils. Some customers will take a little bit less. And frankly, most of our customers just get 2 bottles at a time.
Got it. What kind of form is it? Like a dropper or?
So it comes in, this is a sample bottle. It's just got a measuring cup on the top. We also do have what we call our single shots. And you can get these actually come 30. This is exactly 5 mils, 1 teaspoon, and you get 30 of them in a box. So there's absolutely a 30-day supply.
That's convenient.
Yeah, it's
Awesome.
right. It's super convenient. By the way, we were talking about kind of the drinking aspect. We have a number of testimonials, myself included, on the benefits, the hangover helperness of this particular product. I mean, if you imagine you're getting better sleep, like, it makes perfect sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of people could use that. Well, Chris, man, I mean, so much knowledge on today's show. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on. Everybody out there, check out MyVitalC. Website is www.myvitalc.com. Really bright guys you saw today.
Make sure you go to /Dr. Abs.
Yes, / Dr. Abs for that discount. And yeah, definitely give it a try. Could extend your life. So check it out, guys. All right, Chris. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much.
We'll talk soon.
All right.
All right, buddy. Take care.